So, Liv, we're back.
What have you got me this time?
Looks a little bit different. You're in 3D now, which is...
It's a very comfy couch.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of we've definitely leveled up from my little studio where I had... When you bought me a, what was that light?
Oh, my God, the light from Bunnings that I bought you because your light was always terrible.
And then my selfie light and then the studio light and a skylight.
Now we have legit light. We are back, and a huge thanks to Tidy Disco for making this happen for us. But yeah, so excited for this season. It's going to be epic. Tell me, we've been on break. Any major updates from your end?
Oh, not particularly.
Yeah.
Business as usual.
Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, my God. Okay, where do I start? Okay, no, let's start with yesterday. Okay, so yesterday, obviously we're filming during the day, and today we are filming during the day, but yesterday, so Noah has a day off today from school. And I only realised it yesterday, and I'm like, shit, I can't have my child hovering while we're doing a freaking podcast thing. So I was like, right, so what do? I think to call every single person in Melbourne to work out what I can do to get Noah looked after. So I've called friends, I've called holiday program, I've called nannies, everyone, and it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And then at the very last minute, when I was so agitated, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have him here on the iPad, just like quietly sitting there, hoping he doesn't interrupt us.
Hang on, where's your husband in all this?
Yeah, right. So at the very last minute, I was like, actually, maybe I should call Jules.
Someone else.
This isn't all
shared mental load, primary care responsibility.
Honestly. So then, so I pick up the phone. Hey, Jules, I've called everyone in Melbourne. Any chance you might be able to, look after our child?
Do me a favour.
Do me a favour and look after our child. So and you know what it was? And straight away he was like, oh yeah, looks at his diary. Yeah, that should work. And then he makes the mistake of saying, I go, oh, well, oh, great. Well, thank you. And he goes, well, you could. I'm like, I called everyone in Melbourne. And he goes, well, you could have just asked me. And I went, there is a reason why I didn't go to you straight away. And do you know what the reason is? Firstly, my guilt around the fact that, it's a podcast thing that we've got on. I feel like deep down I'm sitting there going, okay, it's not for my job. Yeah. So I don't kind of have that lever to pull. So because it's for my passion, I feel like I need to sort out the kids on my own. And then secondly, I was like, do you know the number of times I've asked you, and it's
been really inconvenient.
And it totally I've got a job to, and to his credit, I probably should have asked. But I guess, and today we are talking about relationships, and I'm like, well, I think that was the biggest lesson there, because then we had this whole thing around you should have asked, well, I can't ask you, blah, blah, blah. And fundamentally communication is everything, right?
Yeah.
So
because he is probably sitting there going, to his point, why didn't you just ask me? But there's something that's a lot more deep-seated in you to all the reasons that you didn't want to, that you've just outlined.
100%.
So you got a nice little dinner conversation coming up, I suspect, around why are you doing that? It's a conversation Mark and I have had too that usually involves tears, because it is, as you said, mum guilt.
Yes.
And they will go, no, I'm happy to support, and realise that it makes the two of us, come together to kind of literally, work out how we can take care of the kids.
And do you know what? We are such a team usually, but it's when there's things pop up that you don't expect, and then it's like, oh shit, who's doing what? Okay, I'm going to have to coordinate, And, we're talking about relationships today, and, you can see why the divorce rate's over 50%, and it's not about this one incident, for example, but it's that.
I don't know. There's a lot of people who have one thing and go, that's it.
Well, this is true, but it's that compounded by, a number of incidents over a period of time, and you sit there going, I just, throw your hands up. It's just too hard. So if you're not communicating, if you're just sitting there feeling resentful, then, you see how divorces happen,
So I've done a bit of research on this.
Talk to me.
As you know, when I know we've got a podcast coming up, I like to kind of feel like I know what I'm talking about, because as some of our listeners might know, I am a bit of a fake it till you make it type. That's how I've got as far as in my career as I have. But I'm genuinely interested in this, and I know you are really interested in this. In fact, you've done some learning and education in it recently, which is awesome. Yeah. And maybe this is the first of the little coaching sessions together.
Okay.
But you're right. Yeah. The reasons for divorce, the research says, lack of connection, lack of communication, obviously trust and infidelity type issues.
Yeah.
So then I wanted to look at, well, what's like the secret to a successful relationship, especially when you have kids, because we all know that, I mean, has your relationship changed over the last 5 years? I know that mine certainly has. For starters, I wear pajamas now.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I think a lot of the research is, how do you make sure that you keep those things that connect you around your values and, setting up those communication and, other aspects. What do you reckon?
Oh, it's huge. And I mean, to your point, I think one of the items that you listed was like physical touch being a huge piece, right? So let's talk about that pre-kids, post-kids, right? So pre-kids, you're all over each other on the couch, love you so much, darling, kissy and all of that. Now,
you crave it, right? Where does your physical touch go? Your kids.
Yes.
And it's almost like you're suffocated by them.
Yes.
Because you love them so much and you're either kissing them or they're all over you.
Yes.
And then by the time, hubby says, hey, darl, it's like, I'm all touched out. Like, I just give me some space.
It's a lot.
But then it goes too far where you're actually like, I just want to cuddle. I just want to sit on the couch and I just want to kiss. And, we were talking about in our last ep a few weeks ago around, trying to create that intimacy or physical touch around the kids so that they don't go, ew, mum and dad, it's actually something that's normal.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's literally like this Parenthood gig is just crazy. Overnight, your life changes, right? And then for the first year, you basically have a baby glued onto you. And so already you're so tapped out by that physical touch. And then on top of that, you're looking at, trying to do everything for everyone. So you're like, you barely have time for yourself, let alone to, exude any more energy or affection towards anyone else other than your child. Yeah. So fundamentally, it kind of stretches from that first year. And then from then on, it becomes almost habitual that you're not really necessarily making a huge effort to be strokey stroke or even anything. And it's interesting.
Hand on the lap.
Hand on the lap.
Mark and I used to drive somewhere. I'd have my hand on his lap the whole time. We've been together a long time, but I haven't done that for 10 years.
Yeah, right?
You've got to make those little efforts of just like, hey, honey, I'm here.
Yes, yes.
In fact, we were out for dinner with a couple recently and the wife had her hand on the husband, and I just thought, that's really nice. It just shows their connection and their closeness.
Yes.
Not for everyone. And, you don't want to be that soppy couple who are making out at the dinner table. But I
feel like they're the ones you've got to watch because they're the ones that are overcompensating for something. We get it. You're together. Like, why so mushy?
So true.
But also being conscious of our love languages. Yeah. So with Jules, he says, I need all of them. Like I need the gifts. I need the physical touch. I need the words of affirmation. He's like, you are everything. And I'm like, I'm not that high maintenance.
Jules, if you're listening, I'm with you, buddy. I have your back completely.
But he's his physical touch. And so I've been very aware of that. And I think it's because
I never would have picked that.
Yeah. I grew up in a family where like we didn't hug. We didn't often tell each other we love each other. I'm very like the ice queen. I always sort of have been. And so I think what I loved about him was he always does the hand stroke. He always does the kiss. He always comes in for a cuddle. And I was like, I find that so attractive because I'm the opposite. I'm ice queen. Yeah. So, and now that we've got children, I think I often have to, because it is an effort. You have to remind yourself.
Met halfway?
I think we've met halfway more because I have to be conscious. I have to make a conscious effort and go, oh shit, like I probably have been ice queen at home for a little while, frustrated, resentful and all the things, right? When you're trying to juggle it all, that I go, okay. And sometimes I notice myself as well, like when Jules will come over, like, can I have a hug? I'm like, I just need a minute. I just, and I know when I'm doing it. And then I kind of think, it might be the next day or the day after I go, shit, I've got to give him a little bit of love here. And it could be just the stroke or the cuddle. Me. But do you pick up on it when you
I need to
brush
be
him
more,
off?
Yeah, I do. And then I instantly feel bad and almost do the same thing, work out the next opportunity that I can just tell him I love him or give him a bit of a peck or a cuddle, like just an instantaneous cuddle in the kitchen, right? Like just connecting and feeling your bodies together is so important.
So important.
And definitely something that we have 5% of compared to, pre-kids 5 years ago.
Oh, it's, and then I get it how with couples that perhaps haven't done that for a period of time. I mean, we're probably speaking for ourselves to some extent, hard to get back into.
Yeah, you have to. I think we spoke about this last episode too. You have to catch it.
You do.
You have to check yourself. And I mean, I don't know. I find it really difficult to talk about even within my relationship.
Yeah.
So, and here I am on the podcast talking about it, like, go figure. Anyway, but you do, I think within yourself, and you have to check yourself and find the way back, whether it's just changing your own actions or talking about it as a couple.
Yes.
Or
just leading with it, right? So even if you don't want to discuss it per se, you might then decide as of this episode, right, things are going to change.
Tonight, I'm just going to have a cuddle in the kitchen and just say, how are you, hon? And just feel that for 10 seconds longer than you usually would.
Yes, absolutely. It's so important. So, so physical touch is one of the ones that was brought up. What are the other ones?
The other one I find really interesting is around when your roles within the family can transition. So perhaps when a mum, for example, goes back to work or a mum takes a promotion or someone goes away, like Jules going away, and then your role transitions to perhaps one that's, you're always hands-on, but more hands-on, and how you respect that within your relationship.
Yeah.
And I think there are so many life transitions within every couple, because when you meet, if you meet in your 20s and then get married, or I think that probably actually doesn't matter, you transition as a person in terms of who you are and your own maturity and your values and your careers.
Yes.
And you have to do that together.
Yes, big time.
And I certainly know that, we've got lots of different transitions in our, even just day to day. Like currently I'm in probably my busiest 6 weeks. Every calendar year it is just hell on earth.
Yeah.
And so it very much the care of the kids, just keeping, the house running comes to Mark. He now knows, having been with me for so long, we're in a transition period where our roles do change.
Yes.
So really working to identify that is, I think, pretty critical, whether it's just the day-to-day small ones or the more significant life, career changes that might, really influence who you are and how your family runs, I think.
It's such a big one. I know I'm reflecting on what you're saying. Pre-kids, both of us, I guess, had, demanding jobs and things like that. And I would say we felt very 50-50 as far as, work-life balance. Then children came along and Jules got a promotion and I was like, okay, I'm still very demanding role plus I have these passion projects on this little podcast, and so, but then, where does income come into it? Because he's all of a sudden earning a lot more than me, right? And I'm sitting there going, but hold on, and I've resented this for ages. I'm like, well, but hold on, it was 50-50. Now I've got the kids, I'm doing my job, I'm doing my passion projects, but respect that, please. Yeah. And he does, but he's also like, mate, I got to travel, I got to do things for work and
this is my job.
Income does come into it. And all of a sudden we had that shift in dynamic, which I resented for a while there. And I hung on so tightly to, why do you have to travel so much? And it's just annoying to me. And don't get me wrong, we still have, conversations like that. But I sort of got to a point where I'm like, I can either resent this and our relationship can really suffer, or I've got to go, okay, now the dynamic has kind of shifted a little. I have to respect that I have to be more flexible for Jules, and ultimately he's doing it for the family, and I need to stop this resentful piece.
And
it's
support
huge.
him.
And support him.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when he used to tell me I have to go away to Adelaide on a Tuesday, I used to be like, oh, I get really? Oh, I'm going to do all this on my, really? And it was instinctive because I was like, what do you mean? You get to go off and have fun.
Inconvenient for me.
I have to be a single parent for the night.
That
kills me.
To have that response.
Yes.
But you have checked yourself in no, this is really important for him, for our family, for our future. And as much as this really sucks, I've got to support him.
Yeah, otherwise.
And you would expect the same thing in return, right?
Absolutely.
Which is one of the gripes that we always seem to have about our husbands on this pod. In the research, and the other one that I pulled out was this idea around appreciation, right?
Yeah,
which is kind
such
of
a
what
big one.
that follows on from this, right?
Oh.
So thank you for going and doing all of those things.
Yes.
So for him to come home and go, thanks, Liv, for, just holding the fort while I've been away for 5 days. I really appreciate everything that you have done.
Yeah.
And then, for you to say the same thing, whatever the relevant context is, you have to have that. I know that's, again, we've spoken about it previously on the pod. We'll find the app. Yeah. But, that's probably my love language when we start talking about that. I need to just be recognised for, doing the mental load tasks that I perhaps feel might outweigh from time to time.
Yes.
Just the little things. So I probably picked those 3 because they are what felt most relevant to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super, super interesting.
Oh, honestly. And look, I've, chatted to so many couples throughout the podcast and through the work that I've been doing with relationships, and appreciation is such an easy thing. It's literally just like, thanks for dinner. Like, it's the small, but
that
the
was
hardest.
Delicious.
Yes.
Thanks for dinner.
Thank you for slaving away for 25 minutes in the kitchen. The kids haven't eaten it.
The kids didn't like it, but I loved it, hun.
I really appreciate it. But it's the hardest thing to do.
Thanks for packing the bags for the holiday.
Yes.
Like, thanks for doing the 25 loads of washing when you got home. Like, that must have really sucked.
Honestly,
And I will say thanks, honey, for taking the bins out.
Yes.
Like, it has to go both ways.
Has to go both ways.
I mean, here we go. Demand.
Yeah.
But I think, really, really, really important to just, call out the stuff that we all do in our relationships
100%.
and thank a lot more regularly than what we do.
And I feel like you can't over communicate, right? Like, you're better off just, putting it out there rather than just kind of keeping it in, because and I think when you put it out there, and it was an active thing that we've really tried to do as much as possible, or at least be super aware about, it becomes habitual. Like, you start getting into this little pattern where, Jules is thanking me for dinner most nights then, because it's kind of habitual, or I'm, today when he steps in, so that, after that whole thing, before I walked out the door, kiss on lips, thank you so much for looking after Noah today. And I walk out the door.
And he probably would say, babe, I'm happy to help. And then there you go, full, the full circle of the conversation and understanding exactly where you're both at.
Yeah, 100. And the other one that comes to mind actually is in speaking to people about their relationships. Often those who have ended their relationships have said, I mean, it's talking to these points we're talking about here, they grew in a different direction. Yeah. So perhaps that whole change in dynamic, I want to go over here and I'm not, they couldn't kind of meet halfway to be able to
continue to grow together.
Yeah, deal with the changes. Like, this person has to now all of a sudden, go overseas for work for a period. And then as a family, being able to move with that change can be really, really challenging. But it's that whole growing together piece that I think a lot of people were just like, in the end, I was trying to get over here. My partner was trying to get over here. It just wasn't going to sort of work. So, I mean, I think these little things that we've spoken about today, like hopefully they can support in, when the big changes do happen, life happens. Like, someone passes away, something, someone gets depressed, something, all the things.
Someone's unwell.
Yeah.
There are so many things that can happen over the course of, your relationship. It is the most important thing that you're in it together. Oh. And I can imagine it feels very lonely if, you are not. So, I mean, I know there are so many different organisations out there that, help couples through this. Yeah. And, we often joke that every single person on the planet needs therapy, right? What? There's no shame in that.
Yes.
And there is so much research too that before the tipping point of critical disaster in your relationship, the earlier you can do intervention around, having someone facilitate the conversation, especially if you're probably like Mark and I, like we will talk about it probably at the point of we really need to talk about this. Whereas if we invited someone in to kind of facilitate that conversation, I think that would be a really helpful thing.
Oh, 100%.
I'm sure other people are probably listening to that going, yeah, maybe I should do that too. We're feeling in that limbo land.
Well, yes, we were, and I think I've mentioned to you, we were in limbo land. So what had happened for us, and we ended up seeking external support for 3 sessions.
Yeah.
What happened to us though is we hit breaking point. So what had happened was, I think Noah was, 1 year old. I think I know the story, but I don't know if it's appropriate for the pod. I'll give you the PG version. I'd been like sitting in my resentment and just trying to navigate, new parenthood, and the dynamic in our relationship was changing, and I was just like not speaking about my, disgruntles and probably similar Jules, not communicating overly either. And I remember, so we went to a friend's house for a dinner party, and we're sitting there, and I'm looking at the clock, and I'm like, okay, we've got the babysitter. I told her around 12 o'clock we'll be home. Always nice to get home on around number 2. I don't want to get home at 12:17 because I'm probably going to end up paying her for the extra. I want to be home a little bit before 12, nice round number. So I'm having a few drinks and enjoying myself, but that's always in the back of my head, mental load. And anyway, so then I turned to Jules. It's like, we were walking distance from home. It's like 11:40. I turned to him. I'm like, babe, probably after you finish that drink, darling, we'll probably head off. And he was like, and he turns to me and is like, oh, come on, I'm going to have one more wine. And then one of the guys next to him, I was like, oh, what's that? No, you guys can't go, one more wine. And then everyone's like, oh, no, Joker, I'll have one more wine. And Jules is like looking at me smugly like, we'll be fine. And I'm like steam is coming out of my ears. I'm like, read the room, baby. This is not the time to be asking me for one more wine, And then I was like, okay, attention, go away from us. And then a few minutes later, I was like, we have to go. And he looks at me and he's like, I kind of gets it. He's like, all right, fine. And I'm walking home. I am steaming. I'm
60 kilometers per hour.
literally 1K ahead of him because I'm like, I hate you right now. And I was like, and it's not because of the extra hour, the $20 for the baby. It's not about that. It's about the fact that you were able to sit there completely relaxed, not really feel the level of like anxiety I feel around the fact that we've got all these moving pieces in our lives, and it's not just us, and tomorrow morning and we can just be hanging out, and it's not just another wine. So we get home and he's like, pay the babysitter, thank you very much. She walks out, I'm all smiley, close the door, and then I'm like, what? The steam, like the lid just pops off. And I was like, he's like, I don't get why you're so upset. Like, who cares? We could have stayed for an hour. And I was like, do you know what? It's not about this. It's not, and it's never about the thing, right? It's always about everything else that's built up. And I'm like, and my life has changed so much, and it just seems like yours hasn't, and you're just kind of flutzing around, and I'm doing circles around you trying to make all this stuff work. I'm just over it, and this, and then I storm off to bed, and he's like, whoa, I didn't even see it coming because I hadn't communicated anything. So anyway, the next day, always better to speak about it the next day, not in the heat of the moment. I always do the heat of the moment stuff, and then I'm like, damn it, could I suck my words back in? Anyway, the next day we had a chat about it, and he's like, okay, obviously you've got a lot of things that you're not happy with. We need to talk about, but also we were trying to like kind of come to some level of agreement around things. It's like, I've got to work, mate. And I was like, I've got to work too, but I've also got to do all these other things. It's like, I can't do those things because I've got, and it's true, like he's got less flexibility in his role. So we're sitting there going, we're in a rock and a hard place. I'm still frustrated. You're telling me you can't do anything different. We need help. And I just turned to a girlfriend of mine, as you know, a very good girlfriend of mine who's a psychologist, and she has a lot of, recommendations in town. And I said to her, look, I don't know where to go to from here, because if we continue progressing, I'm going to continue being disgruntled, and he's going to continue being like, why is my wife a witch? And we're like, where do you end up, right?
And papers will be served.
Right? So, and you can see how this happens. So basically I got a great recommendation. I told him, because the other thing is, and a number of girlfriends have said to me, what if my partner, I should say girlfriends, obviously we're very open to all different types of relationships, but just generally girls have come to me with the, what if my husband doesn't want to attend therapy? How do I even go about that? Because I believe we should go. The way I framed it was, hey, I think it would be supportive if we had a third party to support us in kind of finding out why we're in a rock and a hard place.
Good conversation.
A great conversation.
An expert in
exactly
getting the right words and supporting and encouraging, if you only go half of the way there, but what you really need to communicate is the next bit.
Exactly.
you need someone to help you get that out.
Absolutely. And the other thing I think people think is, oh God, are we going to go to therapy for like the next year? And I was like, no,
broken,
we could.
The stigma, we have to move away from. We really, really do have to move away from that.
Absolutely.
As I said before, a really good preventative measure.
Yes.
Or reactive measure in some instances.
Yes.
To help all of us navigate relationships. Because as we're hearing, relationships are so... Mum always says, don't say bloody. I'm sorry, Mum. Bloody hard.
Like literally. And so, off we go. We attended our 3 sessions. We got some really great nuggets of wisdom and we went, cool, I think we're good now. And we were able to move on.
Checking yourself now if you start to fall back into old habits that because of the work that you did at that time through those 3 sessions that you've got some strategies to better communicate or navigate it?
100%. And also I know that I can go back anytime. It's just knowing that you've got that support there. So I guess for those listening, if you're sitting there going, well, we're at this little disgruntled place, something to consider. For those of you who are like, well, hold on, my partner may not want to necessarily go and seek a third party. Well, maybe you can go yourself. You start thinking about how you might want to, do the little things that we spoke about earlier, like maybe just these tiny little shifts in your relationship and the way in which you're conducting yourself can make a difference. So
I'm going in for the kitchen cuddle tonight. I'm going to get that 10-second cuddle in the kitchen.
Yes, love that. All right, Liv, well, we'll leave it there. I'll catch you next time.
See ya. Bye.